Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Hoops HD's.
Oh, I'm sorry. How did that get on the screen? What is that doing? Jeez, I just dropped. I just leaked something from my personal notes here. I hope this doesn't influence anything. I wouldn't want that.
David, I'm Chad Sherwood, your host. David Griggs trying to take over the screen with scores from Syracuse. I think we're going to have to discuss that game a little bit later on tonight here. Joined also on the other side of me by Matt Zukowski. Down below on our Brady Bunch style here in the center, John Titel. Off to the sides, John Stalika and Joey Fortson. This is our Hoops HD bracket rundown show. The format for this show is the same format we've used for the last couple of weeks here, where each of our panelists and I have all submitted our 1 through 50 lists of the top 50 teams in the nation. I cross-country scored those, and as a result of that cross-country scoring, we came up with a consensus seed list that I went ahead and bracketed. I added in the single bid conferences, and we have our current consensus bracket up to the minute as of 9:45 p.m. on Monday, March 6th. So on that note, let's just go right ahead and start getting right into it. And there it is. There's our bracket. Did it come up this week?
It did.
Yeah.
All right. And let me start. David, what do you think of the teams that are in so far?
I agree with it all. I still think that you should just take my seed list and bracket that, and then maybe give yourself a veto. Maybe.
Actually, speaking about seed lists, this isn't going to be our last bracket rundown show, but we are going to have brackets every day. John T, you are posting your updated bracket every single day the rest of the way. Am I correct?
That's why give me the big bucks.
Yep. Right. And then, and beyond that, we'll be doing video notebooks, and we are going to be updating what our mock committee is doing. So we've got a lot that will still be coming. But let's start at the top. And we had this problem last week. It happened once again. 3 of us voted one team number 1, and 3 of us voted the other team number 1. I once again used the RPI as the tiebreaker. So Villanova, number 1 overall in the East region. Let me show you the number 2 team, because this was the team they're tied with. Number 2 is Kansas. And Joby, let me hear from you. Which way did you go on this, and why?
I went Villanova. They've beaten a few more teams in conference. I love what they did out of conference. Though Kansas with the win, and Kentucky is certainly a very good representation. It's a tight call. These were my 1 and 2. And if all of a sudden Kansas were to be the overall number 1 among our selection committee, you wouldn't be hearing me argue a lot. I just thought Villanova had a deeper body of work, but Kansas, there's nothing to be ashamed of what Kansas has done.
David, do you agree with that?
Well, I agree that they're both really good. I had Kansas number 1 just because I realized Nova might have a little, more little things.
Take that off of there. Okay,
by terms of the one line. But Kansas has the heavy lifting, the win at Baylor, the win at Kentucky. I just think that's those 2 are really outstanding wins. The win at Oklahoma State was also really good. And while both of them are really good, I just think Kansas is a little bit better.
Well, John T, which way did you go, and do you want to give your reasoning?
I think that I went Villanova, Kansas, Carolina, Gonzaga,
right.
Although it's been a long week, I assure you. I got to see Villanova play in person on Saturday afternoon, and if I ever have a moment to breathe, I'd be happy to post a nice little thing about it and show some photos. They were only up on Georgetown by 5 midway through the second half. I was like, wow, maybe they're not this dominant team. And then they won by 20-something. I'm like, well, they are this dominant team / Georgetown is not. Villanova is the real deal. They do a little of everything, and they do it well. They can do big, they can do small, they can make free throws, they can force turnovers. I mean, they look like the best team in the country to me.
Well, I think that these conference tournaments may decide that if either one of these teams loses in the conference tournament and the other one wins, I think that will decide who's the ones overall is. If they both win their conference tournaments, I think we're going to have the same debate next Sunday. Matt, you had a comment on them, though?
Yeah, that's actually the John T, because from Twitter, I found out at Media Row that there are rumors that Phil Booth was possibly suiting up for Villanova. He did not, but since I heard there are rumors going around on that, that's an interesting little thing Reds to maybe throw in here.
Yeah, believe me, I wanted to ask him about a couple different things in the post-game press conference, including that, but it went so long because I believe Josh Hart and Chris Jenkins, who were the two players who accompanied Coach Wright to the press conference after the game, are both local guys from Maryland and D.C. So there were a lot of local media asking them a bunch of questions about, all the family and friends in the crowd and making the homecoming and everything. I believe Hart was actually heavily recruited by Georgetown 4 years ago before he ended up picking Villanova. And the joke going around was like that the best senior night performance was Josh Hart. Unfortunately, it was as a senior for Villanova.
Let's go ahead and go to number 3 overall. That was Gonzaga. Still standing here in the 3 line. Really no change from what we did last week. And at number 4 overall, we had North Carolina. Stalika, let me get your thoughts on the 1 line overall. Is there somebody that you think could sneak up and take one of these spots is the bigger question, because it seems to me that we're kind of locking in on these 4 teams at this point.
I don't know if I could call it sneaking up, but depending on how well they play in the Pac-12, I could see Oregon getting up there. Although I believe on their pathway, they're only going to have to face one of either UCLA or Arizona, so they won't have to face both like the others would potentially have to do.
Right, but they would have to play the winner of that Cal-Utah quarterfinal game.
Ooh, wow.
Put them out of their misery.
Yes.
Bring a gun. One bullet.
David,
Quanto Martin's being rumored for the Missouri job. Speaking of not being put out of your misery. Anyway, what was that? You had a question, Jack.
I was going to go ahead and show our number 5 overall team. You see they're in the West region, Oregon, the top-rated team from the Pac-12. And do you agree with that, or do you think we should have had UCLA higher than Oregon?
I still have UCLA as my 4th overall, so I have them above North Carolina, and I could definitely see them getting up there if they win the tournament and beat Oregon and Arizona on their way to winning the tournament. That would be, that would be their 4th win against teams that we're looking at on the 2 line or higher away from home. That is amazing if they do that. Whereas Carolina, Carolina didn't get the true road win against a protected seed like you normally see, although not always, out of a 1 seed. But I just think UCLA has. So, I still have UCLA ahead of them, and I will probably keep them ahead of them if UCLA wins the Pac-12 tournament.
All right. Number 6 overall, John T. Baylor came in at number 6 overall. This Baylor team kind of had been on the 1 line most of the season, lost a few games, faded to the 2, but now I think they're kind of recovering, aren't they?
They are. They're winning a lot of games late. The West Virginia win, obviously, within the past couple of weeks was huge. They have a nice mid-major win over VCU on their resume, and, of course, early on, Oregon, Louisville, and Donetsk. I know that Xavier win is looking fantastic for them. I think them and the Ducks could be a coin flip, but, frankly, they beat the Ducks even if it was without Dylan Brooks or not at a full-strength Dylan Brooks, so I have no problem with them here.
Well, John, let me ask you this, though. Their path in the Big 12 tournament would include West Virginia in the semis and Kansas in the championship game. If they win the Big 12 tournament, do they have a claim for the 1 line?
I think they do. I think the majority of people would say no, only because I've heard a lot of people say Kansas is locked in as a 1 seed regardless of what happens, which I know they have a great resume so far, and I don't think they could do too much to damage it, especially in a loaded Big 12 tourney. But I don't like that kind of thinking, because the whole point of having a conference tourney in a power conference is that you get several days in a row, beat several good teams, and bump up your numbers. I think Gonzaga could drop down, but if Villanova wins Big East and Carolina wins ACC, I think they're locked. If Kansas is locked to 3, I like the Pac-12 champ for number 4, but if Baylor can do that, they have a great case.
Okay. Matt, let me bring up here number 7 overall is that UCLA team that we already addressed. Do you agree with David that they may be the best team in the Pac-12 over Oregon?
No, I like Oregon the best. I think they're the most complete team in that they have a pretty powerful offense, but also unlike UCLA will play a little bit better on the defensive end, where like Arizona might not quite have the firepower of, say, an Oregon, and UCLA doesn't have the defensive prowess of an Oregon. So I like Oregon the best. I like UCLA second best of the Pac-12 because if it's good offense versus good defense, they will side with good offense. But
All right. And as we reveal these, you'll see that obviously these are not what the actual committee is going to do, but this is a good indicator of the types of games, the types of matchups we could see in the real tournament. Look at things like
Yeah.
Kansas, UCLA in the same region. John T, that's the Larry Brown region, correct?
It is. He coached them both.
And number 8 overall, Joby, our second team from the ACC is Louisville. Do you agree that they're the second best team in the ACC?
Louisville steadied the ship. That win over Notre Dame this weekend. Every game it seems like in the ACC is, you're getting a quality win against a solid tournament team. I really like that win over Notre Dame this weekend. It could have gone the other way for the Irish to see them get to the protected seed line. They probably needed it to do that. Louisville right now is probably the number 2 team in the ACC, but I have a feeling as we reveals lines 3 and 4, we're going to see quite a few more ACC teams pop their heads up. Louisville's probably at the top of the group right now.
Right. And last Thursday night, when we did our last one of these, Kentucky came in on that 2 line. Despite not losing, they have actually slipped at our consensus ballot. Sleeka, here they are, just barely missing it, coming at number 9 overall, though.
I would agree with Kentucky being in the 3 line, but I think I was also going to get to Louisville. How many other ACC programs are going to be jealous that they actually get preference to go to New York?
Well, again, Chad had a chance to do something fun and didn't.
Yes,
put Kentucky out in the South instead of matching them up in
I'm just following the
Louisville
bracketing rules, David. I'm just following the bracketing.
Kentucky is in the South.
Yeah, if ruining it for everyone is what the rules say, then I guess you're doing a good job, Chad.
David, we've had Louisville, Kentucky in the NCAA tournament like 5 times in the last 3 years. Come on.
It's been great. Yeah.
Taita, let me head back to you here. Your Arizona Wildcats actually get the spot that David wanted for Kentucky there in the East region, although starting out in Salt Lake City as our 3rd Pac-12 team. Do you feel that this is where they are, still a 3 seed?
I do, but again, as I've been saying for weeks, the Pac-12 winner is going to go much higher than a 3 seed, and I don't have a crystal ball to tell you who that is right now. As far as playing in Salt Lake City, I love that because it's just a state away. As far as who I'd rather see as a 2 seed, Baylor versus Louisville. Man, they're both athletic and they both play defense. And I think I'd rather play Baylor only because I do not want to face Rick Pitino in March. But, man, that's going to be tough.
Well, as well as they play in the regular season, there's just something about Baylor that I don't trust come March.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and Matt, we have Duke coming in at number 11 overall, playing in Greenville. Given that we don't have any games in the state of North Carolina, that's the next best thing that we could do this year. But is that your 3rd best ACC team? Do you agree with that one?
I actually had Florida State this time around.
Really?
And I think this for Florida State's overall profile, and they did now finish ahead of Duke in the standings. So I would have actually had Florida State here.
All right. Well, Joby, you're our ACC guy. Do you agree with him?
I think Matt raises good points. The overall profile of Florida State actually probably is higher than Duke when you look at pure resume. But Duke has been playing better. They're starting to gel. Like I said, Jefferson's, it's what I said last week. I'm going to say it again. Jefferson's health means everything. Without a healthy Emil Jefferson, then all of a sudden Duke becomes very perimeter-oriented and vulnerable. But with Jefferson, all of a sudden that opens up Tatum in mid-range to long. You've got Kennard who's playing out of his gourd right now. And if Grayson Allen jumps in and remains hot as he has been from time to time, Duke could even be better than Louisville at many cases. I'm fine. My personal rankings had Duke 1 spot ahead of Florida State. If someone made a very strong resume argument like Matt's making to say Florida State's ahead of Duke, you're not going to hear much argument from me. They're both, it's what you are valuing at the time as you're seeing.
Well, number 12 overall, it was not actually Florida State. Our next Big East team came in here. David Butler coming in at number 12 overall. And given that we already used both spots in Indianapolis, they actually get shipped to Milwaukee this week.
Yeah, I like this selection. I know that they lost over the weekend to a team that they probably should have beaten. At least if you're a protected seed, you're expected to win those types of games. but I don't think it takes away. So, the top of their profile is so amazingly good. And I think this is, when you add it all up, the top of their profile and some of their kind of head-scratching losses, this is about where they belong.
Yeah, well, they also
what our
and then
committee
they
did
lose
here.
a game to Indiana State, who is the worst, one of the worst teams in the Missouri Valley.
But not an upset, according to the guy at CBS. But anyway, I don't know how the real committee is going to evaluate them. I think that it's close to how we've evaluated them. We're not really trying to guess the real committee, at least not on this podcast. But yeah, I think this is where they belong. The loss to Indiana State, you average that out with a lot of big wins, and this is where they should be.
Well, number 13 overall, starting out the 4 line, is that Florida State team, one spot below and actually in the same region. I'd actually argue that I'd rather be on the Gonzaga side of the region than the Oregon State side of the region here also, so it may not be all that bad. But John T., would you agree with me on that?
I would. The thing I like about the West region, Mark Few, Leonard Hamilton, Chris Holtman, Dana Altman. How many Final Fours those guys been to again?
They go every year. It's the coaches'
The
convention.
coaches' convention.
Yes.
Well, what's interesting, Chad, about this too is Butler and Florida State, next to Villanova, have beaten more teams that we will have on our list likely in the field, and thus have great-looking resumes, whereas Oregon and Gonzaga on pure numbers don't keep up with those two teams. The eye test just really pops, and so it's what you value. It's a great example of dichotomy of having these teams play each other.
Let's go ahead and pull up the next team here. That is Purdue. Matt, Purdue, the Big Ten champion, getting in and getting not even the last team in our top 16, but coming in 14th.
Yeah, I gave them a nice little jump because that was a madhouse they won it yesterday where Northwestern fans that weren't satisfied with Wednesday. They really wanted that game yesterday, and Purdue pulled it out down the stretch and now won the Big Ten by 2 games and really are where they belong, a couple seats higher than the rest of that motley crew of.
That place was unhinged. I mean, you could feel it coming through the TV just how bonkers that place was. It was great. Yeah, nice win for Purdue.
Stalika, Florida Gators getting in this 4 seed as well, in the same region as Villanova. This was a team that was not in consensus being in the top 16 on all of our brackets. Where did you have them, and do you agree with that they belong up here?
I would have had Florida number 18 overall. I mean, I did have them down a little bit after losing to Bubbler and Vanderbilt. But after their injury midseason, they've actually had a few decent wins at home against South Carolina and Arkansas, for whom they actually have a sweep over.
Right. Last but not least, among our top 16 teams, Joby, your Virginia Cavaliers do stay in the top 16. They become the 5th ACC team among the top 16 teams as well.
Yeah, that's interesting that they're paired up with Carolina. I know there's so many ACC teams, it's tough to do. Are there bracketing rules that would force them to drop down to 5 out of the protected?
No, actually, this is a legal matchup because I believe they only played once so far this season.
They played twice.
They played twice. Okay, they played twice, but they would be meeting in a regional semifinal. If they meet again in the ACC tournament, now they would have to be on the other side of the South region bracket at least. But this is a legal matchup, and because they're the 5th ACC team, they can be in the same region as North Carolina.
Right. And I'll say this, the 16 teams listed here are my 16, and not too far off the seeds for the most part. I probably am right now underrating the Pac-12 teams a little bit, but as John T. and others have said, you win that tournament by beating the fellow superpowers, you're going to make big jumps up.
Well, John T., let me ask you this. Looking at the top 16 teams here, if there's something that we've glaringly omitted from this list.
I don't see any glaring. I mean, I think that Press Virginia might be a little unhappy that they're not in it. But I think everybody else is a legit contender, so I think that Huggins will just have to live with it.
And I would agree with that. I think West Virginia is a team that I probably would have also had among the top lines here, and probably Florida down, not Virginia.
And
if
for what
they-
it's worth, West Virginia was actually in a three-way tie for second with Baylor and Iowa State.
Yeah, and in the semis, if they knock off Baylor or Iowa State, I guess they're going to move up, or they still have the chance to play their way up the list.
Let's go ahead and take a look at a full line at a time from here on out. Let's start with the 5 line, and you will see West Virginia in there, joined by Cincinnati, Notre Dame. The team that surprised me is SMU, and Matt, I know you were very high on them, so I'm going to let you defend why SMU is a 5 seed.
Well, no, I mean, they are the outright conference winner. I still had Cincy one spot ahead of them, both on the 5, just because I much preferred what Cincy did out of conference. But I actually like both these teams up on the 5 line. I mean, SMU, since the calendar's turned, has played as well as just about any team we've put out here so far. And I think 5's just about right for where they are.
David, you want to take the counter?
Well, they don't have the true road wins that Oklahoma State and Iowa State have. I mean, it's just when you look at what Iowa State has done, tied for second in the Big 12, and I know they lost at home to Cincinnati, but they didn't lose at home to SMU. And you look at their road wins, it's just a really, really, really strong profile.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, SMU won at Houston and they won at Memphis, and that's not the same as winning at the places Iowa State's won at.
Yeah, and John T., SMU, I see one win over a team that's in this field. Am I missing something? Unless you want to count Bakersfield?
I want to count Bakersfield as a team that's going to make it, but yeah, it's pretty slim pickings. I don't know if it's a schedule thing that nobody wants to play them, or if there was all this uncertainty after the ineligibility last year and everything. But yeah, Cincy plus Houston does not equal. I mean, they have won every single game. Like, I just don't like it. Let's put up all the red and green numbers for this, because I want to see the strength of schedule. 85 for a 5 seed? I don't know.
What was it, not conference?
Okay, I can get that here too. If we go back to the ESPN page here, non-conference strength of schedule is 171. Actually, ESPN's reported the strength of schedule at 113, even worse than the other source was. It depends on what metric you're using to measure strength of schedule. You see some various different numbers there at times.
Yeah.
As far as the other teams on this line, though, Joby, you got Notre Dame, another ACC team who just missed the protected seat, and West Virginia, who we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I think West Virginia and Notre Dame are probably a step ahead of our 2 American conference teams there. I think right now, I mean, and let's see how tournaments go and how they play out. But I think it is those 16 that we have, I think, are the 16 right now. But West Virginia and Notre Dame have opportunities, as has been stated about West Virginia, and most certainly Notre Dame in an ACC tournament, have their chance to play their way in, so to speak, play their way up. And I mean, you could see Virginia, Notre Dame, squaring off, for instance, and that would probably be for a protected seed spot if both teams make it to that.
Yeah, and West Virginia, Notre Dame, there was actually a fairly big gap between those 2 teams, along with the top 16, down to the Cincinnati SMU line here. And there were votes for Notre Dame and West Virginia to be among the top 16 teams. But let's take a look at the 6th line. And Sleek, let me bring you back here. Wisconsin, Maryland, Minnesota, 3 Big Ten teams along with Iowa State.
Have fun, Butler.
Have fun, Butler. Butler, Iowa State there. Kentucky, Minnesota. Sleek, your thoughts, though? And do you see what would happen to Greenville? Again?
I mean, it's not too far off from what I have. I would have had probably Minnesota just a line lower and St. Mary's up, but oh yes, I can see that the puppet is very happy to see Arizona and Wisconsin, right?
No, yeah. This is it's happened twice in a row with our brackets. We've ended up with Duke and Maryland, potentially second round game. It's that means that the way the bracketing rules work, Duke is going to be preferred to be in Greenville, and Maryland will be preferred to be in Greenville as well on that 6th line. So if the seeds are right, there's a real good chance we could get that game, David.
Yeah, well, I don't even think they should play anybody in the round of 64, personally.
I also like the matchup that Chad set up in Indianapolis, but Tubby Smith is coaching at Memphis now.
Kentucky and Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't get Louisville in Minnesota. That would have been an interesting one too.
Tub has been drained.
Right.
Let's take a look at the 7 seeds. John T, we've got Oklahoma State there. We got Miami. We got St. Mary's in the region with Oregon, and we got Creighton against Baylor.
I'm still trying to get over the Arizona-Wisconsin game. You're going to have to give me a second.
That hurts.
Good Lord. Nightmares from the past 2 Elite Eights. Ugh. 7 line looked pretty solid to me. I don't know about Oklahoma State. They sucked by going 0-6, then on fire, and now kind of coming back to earth. Obviously, losing by a few points hosting Kansas is nothing to sneeze at. But Miami's going to travel across the country to play the Bruins in Sacramento. Have fun with that. St. Mary's gets to play in-state, but they got the Ducks coming. A lot of interesting geographic matchups on the 2-7 line for me.
Matt, let me ask you about this Creighton team. This is a team that there was a wide variety of votes in. There was almost a 10-point difference between the lowest vote and the highest vote. And the question with Creighton is, do you judge them when you see them based on their overall profile or how the team is now since they've had their injuries?
I probably split the difference. Like, overall profile is still probably a line or two higher than this, and how they're playing might be a line or two lower. So actually, 7 line is exactly where I had them. So I must have been the middling person that kind of helped get like Alex Summit here on the 7 line.
Yeah, I'll tell you personally, I actually have the one that voted them not only on the 8 line, I voted them on the 9 line because I just don't think they've played very well at all since the Mo Watson injury, and they're not going to have him back for the tournament. Obviously, he's not even in the school anymore. So,
Right. Hey, John, how do you evaluate that, John, our committee guessing expert? Do you evaluate the team as it enters the tournament, or do you evaluate who they had lost and you consider that and give them some credit even though those players aren't there anymore?
I think they have to get some credit for playing without their star point guard. I mean, it wasn't just that he was leading the nation in assists, I believe.
Yeah.
And like running the show, and they were 18-1, and like he was on his way to Big East Player of the Year. And then now it all fell apart, and I know he's not coming back, even though I'm not a doctor, and so they have to slide. I think, Chad, the 9 line is a little low, frankly. I mean, I know like they've played like a 9 seed since his injury, but I think they deserve a little credit for going 18-1 and have to be a little higher than that. Not like a 5 seed, but I think, like Matt said, I think 7 is right for them.
But if you want the fairness of the brackets, sorry, we got a bit of feedback there. But if you want the fairness of the brackets, then don't you have to put them around the 9 line where they're actually playing right now? Because otherwise, you basically say whoever the 10 seed is there, you're going to be the favorite to win that game.
We'll see in a few lines who you put in the 10 seed there. I'll let you know.
Well, I'm not the third either, so let's go ahead and find out. Let's take a look at the 8 line first before we get to the 10s. Joby, we see another ACC team there in Vatech. Actual potential second-round matchup with Carolina.
This is the ACC tournament.
This is the ACC tournament. They only played once this year. It is a legal matchup. Dayton, and look at Tulsa.
Have fun with that, Hokies. Have fun with that, because the Hokies, unless Seth Allen's going off and Lede is going off, the fact of the matter is the Tar Heel size on the inside will just cream them. I mean,
Question.
This is where Hicks and Meeks will have a field day, and they might have a chance of holding some of the perimeter play of Barry in check, because Buzz does. I think the defense is excellent at times at Virginia Tech, with Clark being a weird matchup for other teams, but injury prone.
David,
I love what you've done here.
Carolina.
I got criticized last week for what I did with Kansas, so I fixed it.
Yes.
Kansas, Wichita State, potential second-round game. There it is.
Okay, I do have to ask, why wouldn't you swap South Carolina and Virginia Tech? Is it a mileage thing, or because it seems like South Carolina belongs in South Carolina?
It was. I think Virginia Tech came in higher on the C list, so Greenville is closer for Vodtech than Buffalo, and that's all it comes down to.
Okay.
I think we're going to be getting some emails from Angry Frank for the mailbag tonight. Just be forewarned.
Oh, not that deal.
Matt, you had a comment about it, though?
Well, here's something you mentioned a couple of minutes ago about credit and fairness. This is where I had Wichita on the 7 line, and I felt like that's about the absolute lowest I could put them. I'd have no issue if they were a couple of lines higher. This is, I think, they're a really good team. And I don't want to punish a 1 seed by pairing them potentially in the second round. So that's why I thought 7 was the absolute lowest they could be.
Well,
Matt,
John T, you're our committee guest. Let me throw that one over to you. Isn't this if Wichita State is an 8 seed, aren't we penalizing the 1 seed that has to play them in the second round?
We are because we are. I mean, Wichita State has looked amazing for the past month, if not the season. They've had 4 losses, mostly to good teams, if not great teams. I just think that somebody's going to be on the 8 line. I don't think Wichita should be up in a 5 like an SMU, even though I think you could look at the record and look at the argument and make it. I have them around an 8 or a 9, so I think that that's okay.
I think it's fantastic. I would love to punish Kansas by making them play Wichita. What's the problem?
Stalika, you're a big fan of South Carolina. What about them being on the 8 line? Now, I thought that was a little high for them, but that's where they came in.
Well, they were starting to slide down after losing their regular season finale, but it seemed like they had been losing initially to some bubble teams like Arkansas and Vanderbilt. I mean, personally, I would have had South Carolina towards the bottom half of the 7 line, but again, if we look at some of the other losses like Alabama, Ole Miss, that's not a positive trend. They're not in danger of missing the field, but they're getting closer to wearing either black or garnet in the first round.
All right. Well, Joby, I'm going to reveal the 9 line here, and we're going to see some potential first-round matchups. There's Seton Hall against Vatva Tech, Arkansas, Dayton, Marquette. Matt, your team against Wichita State.
God.
Forget it. And Northwestern South Carolina is a real fascinating game there.
That is. That should be a lot of fun. The Buffalo region will be a lot of fun just looking around it because you got a West Virginia potential matchup in the second round as well. A rematch of 2 back-to-back great games. South Carolina, Northwestern, yay. I am hoping that Northwestern fans will do what often fans of teams that are finally breaking through do and follow their team and show that excitement in person. I have a feeling they will. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it's not that far to go from Chicago to Buffalo.
I think we should do, like I say, I think we should do Matt a favor here and actually swap Seton Hall and Marquette right here. We need that first-round matchup in Greenville.
Oh, God, I'd much rather see that game for many reasons.
David, is there somebody that now we're 36 teams in that you think that we've missed out here on that we have just, it's crazy that we haven't included somebody yet while we've had teams like Marquette and Arkansas and Seton Hall in already?
Do I?
I'm just asking you.
I don't think so. I mean, no one's coming to mind, although, like, when I see them pop up on maybe one of the next lines, they might. I really like Middle Tennessee, but I didn't even have them up this high the last time we did it. VCU, not this high. USC, not this high. I don't know. Not that I can recall, but again, it's been a busy few days, and I've been on a heavy alcohol regimen to help me deal with everything, and maybe I'm forgetting something here.
Fake alcohol.
Well, John T, let me ask the same thing here, because I think we've kind of reached the point here where, in my opinion at least, everybody we've had here is almost or definitely a lock to the field. Would you agree with that, or do you think we've put someone in that still has a little work to do to lock things up?
I'm looking. I think that they're all near locks. I mean, I think I'll defer to Matt on Marquette. I think they're in, but I don't know if it's super lock. I think Arkansas and Seton Hall are in, but I don't know if it's a super lock. As far as who we're missing, maybe a Big Ten team from the state of Michigan, either one of them. But I don't think I can make an argument for either of those teams over anybody we got so far.
All right, so let's go ahead and Matt, let me show you the 10 line here, and both those Big Ten teams for the state of Michigan are on it, together with VCU and Providence. And is that surprising to get Providence this high?
No, I had them, I think, like number 37, so I just actually had them at the top of my 10 line. There is a team from Michigan that wears green that I still think is actually a little bit high here. I don't love their profile. They've shown no sign of playing great down the stretch. They lost both their games this week. I mean, I have them in my field, but man, I almost think they should be making a trip to Dayton.
I'm a Wow.
Well, David, I'll let you comment. Then I was going to ask Joby the same question. Go ahead.
I'm a little surprised at VCU this high. I think they're on the bubble. I think they're on the right side of it, but I don't think they're this far inside of it. When you look at them, they just haven't really done much of anything. But other than that, they're doing great.
Well, let me go to Titel then before we go over to Joby. Sorry, 1 second here, because you're the one that the VCU rated the highest. You had them higher than this even. Do you want to defend that?
I do. I think they're a solid team. They could have won the A-10, even though it's a down year. It just came up a little short to Dayton. I don't know that they have any signature wins of note, sadly, when your power conference wins are St. John's and LSU. But I think that's a Shaka Smart era situation where nobody wants to play them. They've beaten a bunch of mid-majors, but obviously that will only get you so far. They're certainly not like a top 8 seed, but I think that they belong in.
And a loss at Fordham, as we're circling right there.
Right, I agree they belong in. I just wouldn't have had them even this high yet. But
Joby, let me go to you, though. I want to get your thoughts on this. Let me get the line back up here on this 10 line.
Well, and let me echo what David said. VCU's on the right side of the bubble, but the heft just isn't there. The A-10's too weak. I'm not high on VCU being this high. Being in, sure, but not. But their best contribution is they're giving teams like Georgia Tech hope because they beat a tournament team, sort of thing. Is VCU's biggest contribution. The team that I know that I probably rated, Matt was talking about them already. Providence is hot. I mean, I really, I really like how Providence is coming along. Their last 5, they BS their way around, this weekend a little bit, but they are really coming up. Like what I see, I would not want to play them. They are probably wearing dark right now, but who knows? A good run, the Big East tournament, we're talking as a 7 or 8, and people will look at its recency bias to a degree. But while the committee doesn't have that, how'd you do in the last 10 criteria anymore, I think they do look at how you're playing in a general view. I mean, look at that. Look at that. Butler, Xavier, Creighton, Marquette, DePaul, and St. John's. You should win, but they did 6 in a row. They're playing hot. Don't want to play them right now.
And here's a
Yeah, Titel, I was going to ask you, though, when you evaluate a team like this, we can't forget about the bottom here. And St. John's to Boston College to DePaul, what I've been calling the unholy trinity of losses there.
Yeah. It's pretty unholy. It's I don't think I can hold my nose strong enough, in fact. It's pretty bad.
I think that's 10 line is basically perfect for them to where they should be in, given how they finished the season, some of their wins. They did have some halfway decent wins out of conference over Rhode Island and Memphis, but I think because of that group of losses, they probably can't climb maybe to the 9 line, and that's about it, barring they winning the whole Big East tournament.
And Sleeka, you had a comment also on them?
Yeah, I was going to say Providence actually has a nice little pathway to get to the Big East title game this year. They start off with Creighton since they're the 3 seed, and then they would face either Butler or Xavier in the semifinal.
So you think they could beat Butler? Because I don't.
I'm not so sold that Butler gets past Xavier.
They have beaten Butler. They have beaten Butler recently, and if they do, that's how they get to wear white. If they don't, they're wearing dark, but they're playing in March.
Okay. Let's take a look at the 11 line. We're going to show 3 of the 11 seeds. These are the last 3 teams that avoided the first 4. One of them being an automatic bid there. Middle Tennessee getting in above the first 4 on our field, along with USC. And what kind of shocked me was Wake Forest not only making the field, but avoiding the first 4.
Well, they've had a good week.
Okay. Do you want to defend it, David, then? Because I think you had them rated highest of anybody. You had them 37 overall.
Yeah, well, I mean, they won at Virginia Tech, who's been good at home this year. Duke didn't win at Virginia Tech. They didn't even keep it to double digits, and they won at home against Louisville. And there isn't really anything bad. They were lacking something good, and now they've got something really good. So, I think that when you look at the rest of the bubble, most namely a team that hasn't been put in yet, I think they belong ahead of them. I had no issues with them right here at all.
Matt, what about USC here? Is this team, they need another win here in the Pac-12 tournament at least, if not 2?
I think they've done just enough. I think they'll at least be it. Now, if they lose early in the Pac-12 tournament, I could see them going to Dated, but they did what they need to do this week in fairly impressive fashion, and that neither game was close. I didn't mess around. And so I have them in the field. Like I said, if they go to Dated, it wouldn't break my heart. I did have them just above Dated, but I think we've overrated a certain team from the Commonwealth a little bit. But so this is about right for USC.
And Taital, I got to ask you about Middle Tennessee. You did not have them in your field. Everyone else, I think, did. Do you think that this team, should they lose in the CUSA tournament somewhere, is not going to make it?
There's a chance. I mean, they're 27-4. Like, they're looking great, obviously. I still don't like losing to Tennessee State and Georgia State at home. Since you guys love road wins, I assume you would hate home losses. Losing to UTEP anywhere on the planet Earth should be grounds for disbarment. But, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of wins, and they're a good team, and I think they're going to win the conference tournament. I love Coach Davis. But if they go 29-5, I think that they could. But I don't think it's a lock.
I'll tell you something, though. Tennessee State was playing excellent basketball for the month of November and December. It might be a factor in there. Really fell apart the second half of the season. And the opposite with UTEP, who played awful for the first 3 months and actually played really well the last month. So if you look a little beyond even the numbers there, David, I think there's you can't really excuse them away, but you can put an asterisk by both those losses.
Well, I like this team. I know what John is saying about the selection committee is probably right, but as far as for the purposes of our own committee, I really like them. I think the win at Belmont was really good. They were the only team that won there. They had wins against people like Marshall and UAB and teams that typically played really well at home. Those aren't tournament teams by any means, but I still think those games were harder to win than what they appear. And really, I mean, they blasted Vanderbilt. I mean, they just blew them out of the gym. They went to Ole Miss and beat them really handily. Most of the SEC didn't beat them as handily as or they didn't even beat them at all in a lot of cases at Ole Miss, and if they did, they didn't beat them as handily as Middle Tennessee did. They're a really, really good team. I think they've done enough to earn it, at least as far as all the indicators being that they're a tournament caliber team. And because of what John said, and because he is the one that knows the committee the best, I just hope they win the conference tournament so it's not an issue for their – well, I mean, there's some other teams that I would maybe like to see win it as well, but who knows?
I'm going to go ahead and reveal the first of our first four matchups, the first of our matchups in Dayton. Maybe I won't. There they are. Xavier versus Syracuse. Let's start with Xavier. Slika, they're your team. Barely making the field at this point.
Yep, it's going to be one of the few times that Dayton fans will be cheering for Syracuse because we've seen this horror movie before.
And David, you want to make the case why Syracuse does not belong in. Let me go ahead and pull the profile up while you make the case.
Yes. Well, okay. They have 2 wins away from the Carrier Dome, both against teams that probably won't even be in the NIT. They do have some nice home. They have an RPI in the top 100, just like North Carolina, only theirs is not quite as close to the top 10 as North Carolina's. It's 80. I just really am not seeing a whole lot here other than being a home court hero. And typically, those teams don't get in. I know it was an extreme case, but I recall a year where Penn State had 6 top 25 wins, but all were at home, and the committee didn't take them. This looks about like that, if not even as good as that.
Well, Joby, some of the things that are in Syracuse's favor are, including in addition to the top 10 wins there, you are 10-8 in the ACC. And you do have a couple road wins at Clemson and NC State, who at least Clemson was a very good team. It was a very competitive team this year.
Yeah, the road wins is a weak spot. If they miss the tournament, that's it. And Syracuse has been through this, has seen this movie before and missed it because of a lack of scheduling or scheduling success out of conference. But they do have a slate of really quality wins. I mean, Miami, Wake Forest, Florida State, Virginia, Duke, that is some great. I mean, that is a list of teams that is very strong. 3 protected seeds in that group. Other teams on this level that we will be talking about don't have that component, even if they have some road wins. But I might add, I like Middle Tennessee State. I had them ranked, higher than Syracuse. But none of Middle Tennessee State's – you throw out those road wins for Middle Tennessee State, it's – UAB's a tough place. Well, Clemson's tougher. Sorry, Clemson's tougher. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not do I love Syracuse? I think I had them as I had them in the first 4, but there are weaknesses that you talk about the Holy Trinity at the bottom of Providence's profile. Syracuse has that as well. Their former Big East. They did
St.
very
John's, BC, yeah.
Former Big East, UConn, St. John's, and Boston College.
And Georgetown.
But Syracuse I do have in this tournament, but it's an indication that someone can take the spot from them if they make a run in their conference tournament. We'll get to who that could be later in the show.
The Johnnies beat them by 33.
Not too much later, actually. But Titel, I'm going to show you here our last 2 teams that made it are Vanderbilt and Illinois State.
Yeah.
And this Vanderbilt team, unless they somehow win the SEC tournament, would be the first team ever in the field with 15 losses as an at-large bid. Are you buying it?
I'm starting to come around. So
Okay.
I as a historian, I love the fact, like you said, that no 15-loss teams ever made it. And I kind of want to say keep that tradition going. But if you pull up their profile, the only number that people are going to care about is the number 1 if they make it.
Yeah.
Or number 2.
Actually, number 2, yeah. number 2. I think it's number 1.
Virginia took over number 1, by the way.
Well, yeah. The
Wins are
low,
important, but if you're going to lose, you better lose to the hardest schedule or the second hardest schedule in the country. And that's
And
what
look
they
at the
did.
non-conference strength of schedule, too. The games they chose to play were tough.
right.
I know we've heard the example of Georgia in 2001 cited frequently as having 14 losses, but that was in an era where the schedule had 2 fewer games. So it stands to reason that you're eventually going to catch up to 15 losses for an at-large year.
Well, with the 15 losses, you also have to look at that it is the number 1 schedule, well, number 2 overall and number 1 out-of-conference schedule. And if you're going to get hung up on 15 losses, essentially what you're saying is you'd like them better if they'd played a softer schedule and won more games. I think you have to like them the same. I really like how Vanderbilt's playing now. I think that if they get to the semis of the SEC, which they're certainly good enough to do, that they're going to get in.
Well, absolute must win in their first game against
yes,
Texas A&M. Absolute must win, I think. And they're good enough to make a run at the SEC championship game. They're also bad enough to lose that game. So I think that they would solve everybody's questions if they did lose that. But Salika, let me show us the first top 4 teams out. Illinois State did make it in, which surprised me. The top 4 teams out: Iowa, Kansas State, Rhode Island, and Illinois. And I can actually tell you that the only teams that any of us actually thought should be in that did not make it in were Iowa and K-State. Rhode Island and Illinois were, except they got votes, they were beyond, they were among the top teams out from everybody. Do you want to make a case for Iowa or Kansas State over somebody we put in?
I would have an easier time making a case for Iowa if they were not swept by Illinois. I mean, we've already brought up the Omaha loss, but we haven't brought up Illinois very much, and they certainly shot themselves in both feet against Rutgers over the weekend.
Thank you very much, Chad. I quite enjoyed that.
You're
result.
welcome. You're welcome. Actually, I'm going to have one more team in. There was only one team. Another team that even got any vote consideration. That was Cal. So that was it. And this is why I think the bubble really kind of starting to shrink, at least from what we've seen in the last few weeks. That's it. Among the 6 of us, these are the only extra teams that we thought even deserved any consideration for being in the top 50 in the nation right now. Titel, is there a team that you want to make a case for belongs in amongst somebody that we put in over someone we put in?
Let me sell you on Iowa real quick, and it will include the future, which obviously I can't predict. This is a team that has 4 top 40 wins. Iowa State by double digits.
Yes.
Purdue, Maryland by double digits. Wisconsin on the road. They
Yep.
open with Indiana on Thursday. I will hopefully be there. I think they can beat the Hoosiers, and then they get to play Wisconsin, who they just beat on the road, and now they're playing the neutral site. If they beat Indiana and Wisconsin to have 20 wins, I think that is a nice little resume.
I would agree. There's one team in particular that I like less than Iowa.
But Joby, what about the fact that we put Illinois State in? Their resume is done. They can't do anything more to help themselves. That they are done and sealed.
They're out.
You think they're gonna hold on to this last spot?
No, they're out.
Yeah.
I had them out. They needed to beat Wichita State. The problem is, unlike Wichita State, unlike Gonzaga, unlike even Middle and UNC Wilmington, who I did have in my top 50, by the way, they didn't play anybody out of conference, and they could have. They could have. No one's scared necessarily of Illinois State. They could have. It's this Missouri Valley. We're only going to play home and homes. Well, you know what? If you're Illinois State, you cannot walk over to Kentucky and say, let's play home and home. Okay? You can't do it. Sorry. Life's not fair. And if you completely avoid it, then I don't really have a whole lot of sympathy for when you're lacking resume wins at the end of the day to try to get in. They needed to beat Wichita State. They most certainly did not beat Wichita State last night. They are right now out. Are they miles out? No, because the bubble is weak. But they are out right now, which means they are out of the tournament. Unless other teams we have listed here, Iowa, I would agree with John that Iowa's the team I would have instead of them. But if, the people around the bubble like Iowa and Syracuse, if they fall flat on their face, they require other teams to fall flat on their face and barf all over themselves to get in. And I don't see that happen.
All right. Let me let's take a quick look at the rest of the 12 line here. Actually, you see, see if we can get them up there. Nevada on the 12th line, along with UNC Wilmington, who just clinched the Colonial Championship tonight, and Texas Arlington, who would be the Sun Belt champion there. That kind of fills out the 12 line.
I got to say that, I don't know where they landed in relation to the first four, but I like Wilmington better than everybody.
And I'll tell you, when I was talking about teams that just missed the field, actually, by our voting, UNC Wilmington would have been our highest rated team that missed the field, even above Iowa. But since they got in through an automatic bid, it didn't really matter. And they're in. But this is a UNC Wilmington team that few more upsets, and they could possibly slide up to an 11 seed.
They're good. I mean, you have to kind of look at it to find it, but I mean, they've won, I think, 11 true road games. They won sort of a half road game tonight, and they blasted them. I mean, they earned that bid, and I am not happy if I'm Cincinnati. I think they beat them. I really do.
Are you ever happy if you're Cincinnati?
Well,
Just
no,
a rhetorical question.
Yeah, it's not a happy place to be. And again, it's one of those matchups that Chad put together just to sell tickets.
Okay, well, let me go ahead and quickly reveal the rest of the bracket here. The 13 lines, we see Akron, Princeton, Gulf Coast against Florida State, a little in-state rivalry there, and Joby, Virginia, and Vermont.
That might be a fun one.
That's
really.
a real good Vermont team.
I'm not a fan of that as a Virginia Cavalier fan. I've seen the Catamounts pull upsets, and it would not shock me if they get hot from outside. They're not a fun matchup. Not a fun matchup.
On the other hand, I'm celebrating if I'm Florida right now because Akron's going in the completely wrong direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think
I
Akron's
agree.
going to end up getting that spot, so it may not matter. But 14 line here, Titel, the East Tennessee State, just won the SoCon tonight. Looked really good at doing so against your Arizona Wildcats.
You're killing me. I think that they upset us like in the 80s or 90s when they were a 14 or. Why you got to do this to me?
Yeah.
We also got Bucknell, Bakersfield, and Winthrop in there against Kentucky. 15 line, we've got, let's see here, Iona against Baylor, Omaha now the pick to play Oregon, which does help Iowa a bit. They lost to Omaha. Texas Southern and Northern Kentucky against Louisville. Stalika, there you go.
Just a coincidence, I'm sure, but isn't there like some kind of a bracketing rules in the protected seeds that prevents Duke from playing a Patriot League team?
Yeah, they've
By the
lost to
way,
a Patriot League team before, haven't they?
Yeah.
But
by the way, just as a note, in that 2-15 matchup, Louisville, Northern Kentucky, the crowd, because of the other team in Indianapolis in our brackets, the crowd will be so Northern Kentucky.
Oh, it would be a show. It
Unreal.
would be if NKU could stay with them for just the first half of the first half. I don't want to say what that is, 25 cents, but for the first 25 cents of the game, if NKU could stay with Louisville, the crowd would be ballistic.
Matt, you had a comment about him?
I think, well, in general, this 15 line, we're starting to see where some of the upsets already during championship week, where the Summit League is not going to be putting their best team in. The Metro Atlantic will not be putting their best team in. The Horizon League, although NKU isn't bad, but like I'm sure Valpo or Oakland, especially Oakland, would have been a much stronger rep for the conference.
Yeah, and
that's true because I've said 2018 is when I would really expect NKU to start peaking.
Yeah, and we actually saw teams moving up off the 16 onto the 15 line. Texas Southern, most notably, I had to choose somebody to move up a line. Here's the 16 line. You've got NC Central, North Dakota avoiding the first four, while UC Irvine, Mount St. Mary's in one game in New Orleans against Jacksonville State, who won the OVC in the other game.
Yeah, another one. That could have been Belmont on the 13 or 14 line. Now you're sending a team data that will then get obliterated by Carolina.
Right. But let me go ahead and run through each of you for any final thoughts on this bracket or anything else that we did tonight. And Matt, well, since you're talking, let me start with you.
Oh, sure. Well, something I brought up earlier, and we debated, I think the real committee's going to debate what to do with teams like Cincinnati and probably more, SMU and Wichita, who the metrics love. I think the eye test, anyone watches them, basically what you want to back up the metrics, but their resumes on paper are not that great. So it's a conundrum. How do you fairly seed these teams so you don't maybe punish the team they're going to be playing against in the first round or two and then place them back here? I think we did a pretty good job with SMU, and I just have Wichita maybe one line higher.
All right. Stalika.
Yeah, I have a question for some of the casual fans. Like, how many people are going to look at Jacksonville State and think, oh, that's nice. There's another team from Florida in there, but you have to go a few states to the north and the west to find them.
Yeah, there are two teams that play in the city of Jacksonville, but Jacksonville State is not one of them. Joby.
The very interesting thing is we focus a lot on the Pac-12, the Big Three. And notice the next team down was USC, barely in our field, and Cal is the last of our also considered, and I think they aren't even there on that. It's very interesting to see the impact that the top three will have by not getting solid wins, not even NIT wins, whereas a team like Kentucky, Florida, SEC also is not great shakes this year, but it seems like they have better depth on that, for lack of a better word, bubble area. Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and then just missing below Cal, you're going to see teams like Georgia and Ole Miss. It'll be interesting to see if those metrics, and like, for instance, my formula is one that looks at teams like Kentucky, and they get a boost right now over a team like Arizona or UCLA. It'll be interesting if when you look at the pure metrics and the load of teams who you've beaten in, how the committee will treat this, because it's a subtle difference. It's not the top of the conferences, because I think we can say the top three of the Pac-12 is better than two in the SEC, but the depth, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out on the seeding level, especially among those top teams, Kentucky versus the Big Three.
Okay. John T., any other thoughts?
So John has talked about the crowd factor in Indianapolis. I want to talk about it in Salt Lake. So here's the scene. You've got Coach Miller of Dayton and Coach Miller of Arizona in the same city.
Wow.
So
I just saw
all
that.
the fans from those teams are going to be cheering for the brother team. And all the Arizona fans are pissed that Gonzaga beat them earlier this year with that Alonzo Trier. That Gonzaga-Dayton game, if they can get by Arkansas, which is not a done deal, I think there's going to be so much crowd support for Dayton in Salt Lake against Gonzaga that I'm not calling the upset right now. But having watched Dayton almost come back from 19 down on the road last Saturday night, Gonzaga better be very, very careful about Salt Lake with Miller Clan there.
I also have one more historical footnote to add. When what's now the BB&T Center opened up on Northern Kentucky's campus, I believe Louisville was actually the first team that played an exhibition there as far as D1 teams go.
Yeah, they were. They played their exhibition game on the road there, which was kind of cool.
David, do you have any thoughts for the bracket or for the evening?
Every time we do one of these, especially late in the year, I just think that everyone would be better off if we were the committee. I always like what we do better. I don't know what some of the differences between what we did and what the real committee would do. It'd be interesting to hear from Titel to see that. But I like our field. I like how we evaluate the teams. And most notably, I mean, I like the stuff that I do. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, what I'll say is that, like I said, this is our last bracket rundown show in this format. At least we are going to be convening our Hoops HD mock committees beginning Thursday evening, and we will be reporting on that during our video notebooks and during the write-ups of our video notebooks. Titel, you're going to keep posting your updated brackets every day. We'll have our final brackets released right before the real committee releases their bracket on Sunday. And just want to warn everybody that if you are unhappy with what the real committee does Sunday night, just remember, we did it first for them. We did it better than they did. But unfortunately, the games got to replay the way they did it. I still haven't figured out why, but that's the way the process works. But on behalf of John Titel, John Slika, and Joby Fortson down below, David Griggs and Matt Zukowski up here, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again real soon.